Welcome to my channel. The Ottoman state to 1481. The age of expansion. Early Ottoman history was marked by nearly constant territorial expansion, as the empire grew from a modest principality in northwest Anatolia to encompass the majority of southeastern Europe and Anatolia. The political, economic, and social institutions of the vast Turkish empires of Central Asia and the classical Islamic empires were combined, and new ones were developed that would define the region into modern times. Origins and expansion of the Ottoman state. Circa 1300 to 1402. During the early phases of their expansion, the Ottomans were the commanders of the Turkish Muslims who battled against the Christian Byzantine state and were given the honorary title of Ghazi, Arabic for raider. Osman I, the dynasty's founder, descended from K clan members who had traveled to Anatolia with a large group of Turkmen Oghuz nomads. These nomadic people, who had migrated from Central Asia, conquered Byzantium following the Battle of Manzikert, 1071, formed the Seljuk dynasty in Iran and Mesopotamia in the middle of the 11th century, and took control of eastern and central Anatolia in the 12th century. The Ilkhanid kingdom in Iran led to the invasion of Anatolia by the Mongols, whom the Ghazis fought off first against the Byzantines and subsequently the Mongols. Osman and Orhan Osman emerged as the prince, bey, of the frontier principality that seized Byzantine Bithynia in northwest Anatolia around Bursa following the final Mongol defeat of the Seljuks in 1293, leading the Ghazis against the Byzantines there. Osman and his immediate successors focused their efforts on Byzantine lands surrounding the Bosporus and the Sea of Marmara to the west due to the more potent Turkmen principality of Jermian enclosing the east. The Ottomans, who were left as Byzantium's main Muslim enemies, drew large numbers of nomads and urban unemployed people who were wandering the Middle East looking for ways to make a living and trying to satisfy their religious ambition to spread Islam. Byzantine territories were conquered by the Ottomans, first in western Anatolia and then in southeast Europe, starting under Osman and continuing under his successors Orhan ruled 1324–60, and Murad I, 1360–89. This was made possible by the decline of the Byzantine frontier defense system and the rise of economic, religious, and social discontent in the Byzantine Empire. By the year 1300, Osman had successfully repelled 3 coordinated Byzantine attempts to halt his development, and he controlled a region in Anatolia that stretched from Eskişehir, Dorylium, to the plains of Zdenek, Nicaea. The Byzantine emperor's deployment of mercenary warriors from Western Europe caused more harm to his own territory than to that of the Turks, despite his attempts to win Ilkhanid backing against the Ottomans from the east. However, due to a lack of efficient siege tools, the Ottomans were unable to capture the key Bithynian cities. Furthermore, they were unable to intervene with their progressively more dominant Turkmen neighbors, the Aydin and Kharaz dynasties, who had annexed Byzantine land in southwest Anatolia. The last 3 Byzantine towns in northwest Anatolia, Zdenek, 1331, Zedemit, 1337, and Uskuda, 1338, were quickly conquered by Orhan. Then he made an attack against his significant Turkmen neighbors to the south. By annexing Kharaz in 1345 and gaining control of the region between the Gulf of Edremit and Kapta, Cyzicus, Orhan was able to reach the Sea of Marmara. By doing this, he gave himself the opportunity to break the profitable monopoly that the Murad I, the son of Orhan, was the first Ottoman sultan to permanently conquer Europe from Gallipoli. Despite the frailty and disarray of its defenders, Constantinople was bypassed because its powerful walls and strategically placed fortifications were too much for the nomadic Ottoman army, which remained without siege equipment. Then, in 1363, Murad traveled down the valley of the Maritsa River and took Philippopolis, also known as Philippi or Philippe, modern-day Plovdiv. He was able to coerce the Byzantine emperor into accepting Ottoman suzerainty because he controlled the key grain and tax supplies for Constantinople. Despite an alliance with Louis I of Hungary and Tsar Shishman of Bulgaria in the First Europe Bayezid I during the Battle of Kosovo, Murad died. His son and successor, Bayezid I, was unable to expand his father's conquest of Europe as a result of his father's triumph. He was actually forced to reinstate the vanquished vassals and go back to Anatolia. That return was prompted by the growing danger posed by the Turkmen Principality of Karaman, which was established on the remains of the Anatolian Seljuk Empire with Konya as its capital. In order to concentrate on Europe, Bayezid's predecessors had refrained from annexing Turkmen territory forcibly. Karaman willingly cooperated with Serbia in inciting opposition to Ottoman rule among Murad's vassals in both Europe and Anatolia. That opposition, by 1390 Bayezid had overwhelmed and annexed all the remaining Turkmen principalities in western Anatolia. He attacked and defeated Karaman in 1391, annexed several Turkmen states in eastern Anatolia, and was preparing to complete his conquest in the area when he was forced to turn back to Europe to deal with a revolt of some of his Balkan vassals, encouraged and assisted by Hungary and Byzantium. Karaman voluntarily assisted Serbia in Inc. The last Turkmen principality, Karaman, was conquered by Bayezid in 1397 as he turned his attention back to Anatolia to continue the conquests that his move against the Crusaders had interrupted. However, Timur, Tamerlane, who had been establishing a strong Tatar empire in Central Asia, Iran, Afghanistan, and Mesopotamia, and whose invasion of India in 1398 had been aborted due to his concern about the burgeoning Ottoman might on his western flank, became aware of his progress. Restoration of the Ottoman Empire, 1402–81 instead of conquest. Timur's goal in Anatolia had been to establish a safe western flank so that he could advance his conquests in the east. Following his victory, Timur left Anatolia after putting the Turkmen princes who had sided with him back in charge. It is clear that Timur believed that a split Anatolia would not pose a threat to his objectives. The former property of the family in western Anatolia was in the power of even Bayezid's sons, while the Ottoman Empire in Europe was largely unaffected. However, during the interregnum, 1402–13, a time when four of Bayezid's sons fought for the right to rule the entire empire, internal differences hampered Ottoman attempts to regain their control. Suleiman, his eldest son, took over in Europe, established Edirne as his capital, and won the allegiance of the Christian vassals and those who had encouraged Bayezid to head toward conquest in the east. Ottoman institutions in the 14th and 15th centuries, changing status of the Ottoman rulers as frontier princes, Beys, and Ghazi leaders under Seljuk and then two Khanate suzerainty in the 13th and early 14th centuries, Ottoman dynasties developed from basic tribal chiefs. Since Bursa had been taken, Orhan had been able to declare his independence from his superiors and take the title of Bey, which was kept by his successors until Bayezid I was crowned sultan in 1396 after defeating the Christian Crusaders at the Battle of Nicopolis. The Ottoman ruler's position within the state and the way the state was run were both reflected in these title modifications. The Ottoman leader remained little more than a tribe chief while serving as Bey and even as institutional evolution in order to fulfill the demands of managing and defending a growing empire. The Ottoman state gradually changed the structure of its administrative and military organizations over the 14th and 15th centuries. Naturally, those nations that had existed before the Ottoman Empire, both in the regions it came to reign over and in its ancestral countries, had an influence on that process. As a result, the traditions of the Central Asian nomadic Turkic empires had an impact on the Ottoman state as it developed, especially in terms of military structure and strategy. Additionally, the Seljukas' classical high Islamic civilization of the Abbasids, particularly in the development of Orthodox Islam as the cornerstone of its governmental, military organization, Turkmen nomads made up the whole First Ottoman army, and they remained primarily under the direction of the religious institutions that had converted the majority of them to Islam. Armed with bows, arrows, and spears, those nomadic cavalrymen had largely subsisted on loot. However, those dispatched as Ghazis to border regions or sent to invade and plunder Christian nations had also received. These are just a few of the notable Ottoman sultans who played key roles in the empire's history. The Ottoman Empire had a long and complex history with many rulers, each contributing to the empire's growth and transformation over the centuries.